My parents used my identity to start a business for my sister, but when I sent a legal notice, they were completely shocked. Stay with me as I share how I stood up and showed him what family really means. And if this story moves you, don't forget to support our channel. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and share it with your loved one. Amani Ndlovu was sitting at her small office desk in Gaborone when her phone rang. It was a bank representative, speaking politely but firmly, asking her to confirm the repayment plan for the loan you took last month. Amani froze. She hadn't taken any loan. She didn't even need one. Her voice shook as she told the caller they must have the wrong person, but the woman on the line calmly replied, "Ma'am, the loan is under your ID number, and there are 2 more applications linked to the same business." Amani felt her heart drop. She immediately opened her laptop, typed the business name the caller mentioned, Radiant Roots by Zinel, and her jaw nearly hit the desk. There, plastered all over social media, were pictures of her younger sister, Zinel, posing proudly inside a freshly decorated beauty spa. Bright walls, ring lights, new equipment, everything looked expensive. And under every post, Zinel wrote, "Proud owner of Radiant Roots. Dream big." Amani's stomach twisted. How could her ID end up tied to that business? She drove straight to her parents' home in Francistown, her mind racing the entire way. When she confronted them, her voice was trembling, part anger, part disbelief. She showed them the bank emails, the screenshots, the loan details. But instead of shock, guilt, or apology, they shrugged. Her mother sighed dramatically. "Amani, stop overreacting. Family sacrifices are normal." Her father added, "Your sister needed help. You always have a stable job. What's the problem?" Amani stared at them, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. In that moment, she realized her family didn't just cross a boundary. They had never believed she deserved one in the first place. Amani's whole childhood could be summed up in one painful truth. She was the responsible one, the dependable one, the child who never caused trouble. So she was the one who got ignored. From the time she was 10, she was already the one waking up early to clean the house, helping her mother prep meals, and taking care of her little sister, Zinel. Their parents didn't even have to ask. Amani just did it, because she believed that being helpful would earn her love. But all she earned was silence. Meanwhile, Zinel grew up like a little celebrity in their home. She was called the Golden Daughter, the one with natural charm, the one who deserved good things. If Zinel got a B in school, her parents celebrated. If Amani got an A+, her parents simply nodded and said, "Good. Keep it up." And she kept it up year after year, chasing approval that never came. Money was always the same story. When Amani got her first allowance, her parents borrowed it for groceries and never returned it. When she earned money from tutoring in high school, they took it to pay bills. When she saved up her university stipend to buy a laptop, her father used the money for Zinel's birthday party, a party with decorations, a cake, and a new dress that Amani herself never got. Family support, they called it. You should be proud you can help. And she tried to be proud. She really did. But every act of support was one-sided. When Amani needed help buying textbooks, they said, "You're old enough to figure it out." When she needed transport money for an internship interview, her mother said, "You know we're struggling. Don't ask for unnecessary things." Yet somehow they always had enough for Zinel's hair appointments, fashion outfits, and casual weekend getaways with friends. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It was loud, obvious, and constant. When relatives visited, her parents bragged endlessly about Zinel's creativity and big dreams, even if those dreams changed every month. Amani's achievements were reduced to background noise. "Oh yes, Amani is doing well," they would say, then immediately switch the conversation back to Zinel. As Amani grew older, her emotional wounds grew with her. She learned to stay quiet. She learned not to ask for anything. She learned that love in her family was conditional, and the conditions were never in her favor. Every time Zinel made a mistake, the whole household rushed to fix it. Every time Amani succeeded, it was expected, not celebrated. By the time she became an accountant, stable, organized, hardworking, her parents were already used to treating her like the family's invisible backbone. If they ran out of money, they called Amani. If they needed help with paperwork, they called Amani. If Zinel wanted something expensive, they simply expected Amani to pitch in, because apparently being responsible meant being financially responsible for everyone. So when Amani discovered that her parents and sister had used her ID for loans, it wasn't just a betrayal. It felt like the final confirmation of something she had suspected her whole life. In her family's eyes, she wasn't a daughter. She was a resource, a convenient, quiet, reliable resource, until the day she finally stopped accepting it. The first debt collector called Amani early in the morning while she was brushing her teeth. The unknown number flashed on her screen, and she almost ignored it, until the man on the line asked her to discuss the overdue payment for the Radiant Roots loan. Her toothbrush fell into the sink. She told him there must be a mistake, but he read out her ID number, her address, even her workplace. Everything matched. Amani felt the blood drain from her face. Over the next few days, the calls multiplied. Sometimes polite, sometimes aggressive, sometimes threatening. "Ma'am, your repayment is late. Ma'am, if you ignore this, we'll have to take action. Ma'am, this is your final reminder." Amani started jumping every time her phone buzzed. She muted her work notifications. She barely slept. She kept thinking, how many loans are there? How deep is this hole? When she finally gathered the courage to check the full loan history, her heart broke. Not one loan. Not two. Three. 3 large loans, all approved under her name, all tied to Zinal's beauty spa. And none of them were being paid. She scrolled through the statements, seeing thousands of pulla withdrawn for furniture, equipment, renovations, marketing campaigns, hair products Zinal didn't even know how to use. It was like watching someone set fire to her financial future. The business wasn't growing, it was sinking. Fast. Amani went to the spa in person one afternoon, and the scene told her everything. Clients were arguing at the reception because appointments were double booked. A hair dryer was broken. 2 staff members were complaining loudly about not being paid on time. Zinal was in the corner taking selfies, completely ignoring the chaos. When Amani pulled her aside and showed her the overdue bills, Zinal just rolled her eyes. "Relax," she said, adjusting her wig. "Businesses struggle at the beginning. It's normal. Just keep calm." "Keep calm?" Amani nearly screamed. But before she could, her parents walked in, having been called secretly by Zinal. They didn't come to help. They came to silence her. Her father pulled her aside first. "Amani, listen. You know how life is. You have a good job. Let your sister grow her dream." Her mother added softly, "Don't embarrass the family. Things will stabilize. Just give it time." Amani stared at them, stunned. They were asking her to absorb the debt quietly, like it was a small favor. Like it was her duty. Like she didn't matter. Every instinct in her body told her something was horribly wrong. She wasn't just being used, she was being trapped. Zinal's business was already collapsing, and Amani was the safety net holding it up. If she did nothing, she would lose everything. Her savings, her reputation, her credit score, even her future career. And still her parents begged, "Please keep quiet. Do it for family." Those words, once familiar, now felt like chains tightening around her throat. Amani realized that if she didn't fight now, she would drown in a mess she never created. Amani had been holding herself together with sheer willpower, but everything finally fell apart the day she lost the biggest opportunity of her career. She had applied for a senior accounting position at a well-known firm in Gaborone. It was the kind of role she had dreamed about for years: better pay, better benefits, and real respect. She passed the interviews smoothly, impressed the panel, and even received a call saying she was the top candidate. All that remained was the final background check. She wasn't worried. She had always lived responsibly. Clean record. Hard worker. No drama. But when HR called, their tone was cold and formal. "Miss Ndlovu," the woman said carefully, "unfortunately, we cannot proceed with your employment due to concerns regarding your financial record. Your name is linked to multiple overdue loans." Amani felt like the floor cracked open beneath her. She tried to explain, her voice shaking. "Those loans aren't mine. They were taken with my ID without my permission." But HR simply replied, "We understand, but we cannot take that risk." The line went dead. Amani sat frozen, the rejection echoing in her ears. Her entire future had been damaged by her own family. That was the moment something inside her snapped. She drove straight to her parents' house, tears streaming, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. When she entered the living room, they were all there. Her mother relaxing on the couch, her father reading the newspaper, and Zinal scrolling on her phone as if nothing was wrong. Amani didn't even sit. The words poured out of her like fire. "I lost the job. A job I worked my whole life for. And do you know why? Because of your loans. Your lies. Your fraud." Her mother didn't look shaken at all. "Amani, lower your voice. This is not the end of the world." Her father frowned, annoyed, not by her pain but by her disrespect. "Why are you making noise? We said things will stabilize. Your sister just needs time." Amani's chest heaved. "Time? I lost my future. My reputation is ruined. Debt collectors are calling me every day. And you want me to just be quiet?" Zinal finally looked up, flipping her braids back casually. "You're so dramatic. I said I'll pay it back when the business starts booming. You should be grateful I even trusted you with something this important." "Grateful?" Amani shouted, her voice breaking. "You stole my identity. You destroyed my credit. This isn't support. This is abuse." Her parents stared at her with shock, not because they felt guilty, but because Amani had finally raised her voice. In their eyes, she had always been the quiet, obedient daughter, the one who accepted everything without complaint. Her mother stood up and said the words that shattered whatever was left of Amani's hope. "Everything we did was for family. You should be grateful we allowed your name to help your sister succeed." Amani felt something inside her turn to stone. For the first time in her life, she didn't swallow her feeling. She didn't apologize. She didn't shrink. She looked at all three of them, people she had loved, trusted, sacrificed for, and realized they would never understand the damage they caused. And she finally understood. If she didn't save herself, no one ever would. Amani didn't sleep the night after confronting her family. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying their words over and over. You should be grateful. It's for family. Keep quiet. Every sentence felt like a knife. By morning, she was exhausted, but something inside her had shifted. She wasn't going to wait for her life to crumble completely. She needed help, real help, from someone who actually cared about justice, not family image. She searched online for lawyers specializing in fraud and financial crime. One name kept appearing again and again in reviews, articles, and legal forums: Advocate Thabiso Molef, a calm, sharp-tongued attorney in Gaborone known for taking on complicated cases, especially those involving fraud within families, businesses, and close relationships. People described him as fearless, strategic, and impossible to intimidate. Amani booked the earliest appointment available. When she walked into his office, she felt small and nervous. The reception area smelled like fresh paper and strong coffee. The walls were lined with certificates, newspaper features, and framed photos of successful cases. She sat waiting, clutching the folder of documents she had gathered: loan papers, screenshots, bank statements, and copies of the debt collection messages. After a few minutes, a tall man in a dark blue suit stepped out. His expression was calm but serious. Amani Ndlovu, he asked. She nodded. Come in. Let's talk. Inside his office, Amani felt like everything she had been holding together finally cracked. Her voice trembled as she explained how her parents and sister used her ID. She told him about the fake signatures, the loans, the debt collectors, the job she lost, and her family's refusal to take responsibility. Thabiso listened quietly, taking notes, occasionally asking a sharp question that made her realize she hadn't imagined or exaggerated anything. She had been violated. When she finally slid the documents across the desk, he opened the folder and examined every page carefully. He didn't rush. He didn't shrug. He didn't say, just endure it. He treated it like the serious crime it was. After several minutes, he looked up. His voice was steady and firm as he said, Amani, this is identity theft. Even if it's family, it's still a crime. Amani felt tears burn in her eyes. No one had ever acknowledged her pain so clearly before. No one had ever taken her side without excuses. He continued, they forged your approval. They used your ID illegally. They benefited financially under your name. Legally, you are the victim, and you have every right to fight this. She exhaled shakily, feeling both relief and fear. What can I do? She asked softly. Thabiso slid a document toward her, a legal authorization form. If you want me to proceed, sign this. I will handle everything. The loans, the charges, the court filings. You won't face this alone. Her hand trembled slightly as she took the pen. For a moment she hesitated, not because she doubted herself, but because she knew this signature would change everything. It was the line between being the obedient daughter and being a woman fighting for her freedom. Then she signed. Thabiso nodded once, professionally, but there was a hint of reassurance in his eyes. You've taken the first step toward taking your life back, he said. From here on, we move with strength. For the first time in weeks, Amani felt hope. Real hope. The kind that didn't depend on anyone else's permission. She had found an ally, and she was finally ready to fight. The morning air in Francistown felt calm and ordinary until the courier arrived. The man in a crisp uniform handed a stack of thick, official-looking envelopes to Amani's parents. Sign here, please, he said politely. Her father took them with a frown, barely glancing at the courier before closing the door. They had no idea the calm outside was about to shatter everything inside. As soon as the door clicked shut, her mother ripped open the first envelope. Her eyes widened almost immediately, and she dropped the letter on the table. Her father snatched it up, scanning the pages. His face turned pale. Not the usual annoyed or dismissive expression. They were panicking. A silence fell over the room, heavy and tense. What is this? Her father muttered, his voice trembling slightly. Amani's mother stammered. I don't understand. They're saying identity theft. She pointed at the heading in bold, black letters. Her father's hands shook as he read aloud. Charges: identity theft, financial fraud, unauthorized loan acquisition. They looked at each other, their carefully built facade of control crumbling. The papers described in detail the loans taken under Amani's ID, the fake approvals, and the fraudulent business registration. Every financial move Zinal had made was now documented and legally traced back to them. At first, they seemed frozen, unsure whether to react or hope it would vanish. But the fear in their eyes was undeniable. Her mother dropped into a chair, pressing her hands to her face. Her father muttered under his breath, pacing back and forth. The gravity of what Amani had set in motion hit them fully. They were no longer dealing with a quiet, obedient daughter. They were facing the law. Then, Zinal finally noticed what was happening. She snatched one of the letters and screamed, her voice sharp and loud enough to echo through the house. Amani, this is all your fault. You're just jealous of my success. You can't do this to me. Amani stood silently across the room, arms crossed, watching. She didn't flinch. Zinal's outburst only confirmed what she already knew. The lies, the theft, the years of favoritism, they were never going to admit wrongdoing. Instead, they would spin it as jealousy, as greed, as spite. Her parents, still panicked, tried to negotiate verbally, pleading quietly for her to let it go and think about family peace. But the letters were official. There was no escaping it. Amani had chosen to confront the truth, and now the law was involved. Zinal flailed, throwing documents onto the floor, accusing Amani of ruining everything. Her mother finally whispered, almost to herself, How could she do this? Her father remained silent, staring blankly at the letters, his pride and control completely dismantled. For the first time, Amani felt a surge of power. She had not only exposed the lies and theft, but she had also shown them that she could no longer be ignored, dismissed, or used. The household that once controlled her fear and obedience was now trembling under her courage and the law's authority. The letters sat on the table, heavy with consequences, marking the moment everything changed. Amani had taken her first real victory, and the family could feel it. News of the legal notice spread through Francistown faster than Amani could imagine. By the next morning, neighbors were peeking out of windows, whispering to one another, and passing stories over fences. Some shook their heads, murmuring about family drama, while others speculated loudly about the money, the loans, and the business. Every trip to the corner shop, every walk down the street, felt like walking through a storm of judgment. Even casual greetings carried a curious edge, as if everyone knew her story and waited for her reaction. It wasn't just the neighbors. The church, which had always been her family's pride, became another battlefield. Amani received visits from well-meaning elders, their faces tight with concern. They tried reasoning with her, telling her to consider her family's reputation. Amani, think of your parents, one elderly man said softly. This is a Christian family. Don't let pride destroy the peace. Drop this case. Forgive. Keep the family together. Another elder nodded, adding, Sometimes we must sacrifice ourselves for harmony. But Amani listened and shook her head. Every word they said felt like a reminder of all the times she had been ignored, undervalued, and forced to sacrifice for a family that had never supported her. She realized that peace for them had always meant control over her. Now, for the first time, she wanted her own peace, not theirs. She quietly but firmly told the elders, I've been sacrificing for too long. I won't let anyone use me anymore, even if it's family. I have to stand for myself. Meanwhile, Zinal, realizing her plans were unraveling, went on social media with full force. She posted edited images, vague messages, and videos meant to humiliate Amani publicly. Some people can't handle a sister's success, she captioned one video, clearly hoping to turn the town against her. She tried to frame Amani as bitter, jealous, and unreasonable, but it backfired. Instead of rallying against Amani, the online audience saw through Zinal's desperate attempt. Comments poured in supporting Amani, people calling out the injustice, and others sharing stories of family exploitation they could relate to. Even distant acquaintances messaged Amani privately to say, We've been there. You're brave for standing up. Zinal's posts, meant to shame, only highlighted Amani's courage. At home, Amani felt a strange mix of relief and strength. The whispers of neighbors and the pressure from elders could no longer sway her. She had drawn a line. For the first time, her identity, her voice, and her rights mattered more than pleasing anyone else. And the community, whether they approved or not, had to acknowledge it. Amani had claimed her space, refused to be silenced, and shown that standing up, even against family, was not shameful. Zinal could try to humiliate her. Church elders could urge peace, and neighbors could gossip endlessly, but Amani was unshaken. For the first time in her life, she felt untouchable. She was no longer the obedient daughter hiding in the shadows. She was visible, she was heard, and most importantly, she was free to choose herself. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Amani sat quietly beside Advocate Thabiso Molef, her hands gripping the edge of the wooden bench. She could feel her heart pounding, but she forced herself to breathe steadily. Across from her, her parents and Zinal looked tense, glancing at each other nervously, whispering behind hand. For once, Amani wasn't afraid of them. She had prepared for this day for weeks. The proceedings began formally. The judge, Naledi Kumalo, called the case, and both sides presented their opening statement. Thabiso spoke with calm authority, laying out the facts clearly. When it came time to present the evidence, the room grew even more silent. The BISO started with the screenshots from social media, showing Zinal boasting about radiant roots while clearly tying it to Amani's name. The judge leaned forward, scanning the images carefully. Next, the BISO presented the official loan documents, signed with what appeared to be Amani's ID details, but without her authorization. Each page was methodically placed in front of the court, leaving no room for doubt. Then came the recording. The BISO pressed play. A female voice, clearly a bank officer, said, "Yes, her parents insisted that Amani approved the loan. She never did. I asked if she knew about it, and they said it was fine. She would be responsible anyway." The courtroom went still. Amani could feel the weight of the officer's words echoing around her. Her parents shifted in their seats, her father's face paling, her mother clasping her hands over her mouth. Zinal's usual confidence had vanished, replaced by wide-eyed panic. Judge Kumalo's eyes swept across the family. Her voice was calm, but every word carried undeniable authority. "This court takes family exploitation very seriously," she said. "Love, blood, or familial ties do not grant anyone the right to commit fraud. The victim here, Ms. Amani Ndlovu, had her identity stolen and her financial security jeopardized by those who were meant to protect her." The judge continued, her tone firm. "The actions of the accused are not only morally reprehensible, but legally punishable. This court will not allow personal relationships to justify financial crime. Families are meant to support, not exploit." Amani felt a rush of relief and vindication. She had expected arguments, denials, and excuses, but here was the law itself acknowledging her suffering. Her parents tried to speak, to explain, but the judge held up a hand. "Silence. The court has heard enough from the accused. Your justifications do not excuse the harm caused." The BISO turned to Amani and whispered, "Stay calm. The evidence is clear. You've done everything right." Amani nodded, her chest swelling with quiet triumph. For the first time, she realized she wasn't just fighting for repayment or credit restoration. She was reclaiming her dignity, her voice, and her life. As the judge reviewed the documents and began drafting her preliminary statements, the tension in the room shifted. The family who had controlled her for years now sat powerless. Amani's courage, backed by the law, had flipped the balance entirely. That day, the courtroom wasn't just a place for legal proceedings. It became a stage for truth, accountability, and justice. And Amani finally felt the weight of years of suppression lift from her shoulders. The day of the final judgment felt unreal to Amani. She arrived at the court in Gaborone early, dressed neatly, her hands slightly trembling. She had spent months preparing for this moment, gathering evidence, enduring whispers from neighbors, and facing the emotional weight of confronting her family. Today, all of that would come to a head. Judge Naledi Kumalo entered the courtroom, her presence commanding immediate silence. Everyone rose briefly, then sat again as she took her seat. The air was tense. Amani's parents and Zinal sat across from her, faces pale and eyes avoiding contact. For once, there was no smugness, no casual arrogance, just fear and uncertainty. The judge cleared her throat and began reading the ruling. After reviewing all evidence, including loan documents, social media screenshots, and testimony from bank officials, this court finds that the loans obtained under Ms. Amani Ndlovu's name were done without her consent. The accused, her parents and sister, are therefore responsible for the misuse of her identity and the debts incurred. Amani felt her chest tighten, a mix of relief and disbelief flooding her. She had imagined this day countless times, but hearing it aloud officially made it real. The judge continued. The business Radiant Roots by Zinal, previously registered under Ms. Ndlovu's identity, will now legally be transferred to her. All pending debts and financial obligations associated with these loans are to be fully repaid by the parents and sister. Ms. Amani Ndlovu's credit history shall be restored to reflect her true financial standing. A wave of emotion washed over her. She blinked rapidly, holding back tears, feeling the weight of years of frustration and injustice finally begin to lift. She looked over at the BISO, who gave her a small, encouraging nod. Then the judge's voice sharpened, delivering a statement that would echo in her family's memory for years. Let this case serve as a reminder. Love, blood ties, and family relationships do not justify fraud. Exploiting a family member for personal gain is a serious offense, and the court will not tolerate it. Amani's parents sank slightly in their seats, faces reflecting shame and disbelief. Zinal's usual defiance faltered. For the first time, they were forced to see the consequences of their actions, not just emotionally but legally. As the ruling was finalized, the court clerk instructed that the documents be officially filed, making Amani the rightful owner of the spa. Amani signed the papers with steady hands, each signature feeling like a seal on her freedom. It wasn't just legal ownership she was gaining. It was the affirmation that she had the right to protect herself, to stand up, and to demand respect. Walking out of the courtroom, Amani felt the weight of the past months lift from her shoulders. The whispers, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, they were behind her now. Her parents and sister would have to face their responsibilities, while she could finally focus on herself and her future. For the first time in her life, she wasn't a tool for someone else's gain. She was free, empowered, and in control. Amani knew that from this day forward, she would live on her terms, and no one, no matter how close, could take that from her. After the court ruling, Amani felt a freedom she had never known before. She decided to take full control of the business, but she wanted it to reflect her own vision, not her sister's. She spent weeks redesigning the space, changing the name, and planning services that focused on wellness, self-care, and empowerment. The spa became Amani Haven, a sanctuary where clients could relax, recharge, and feel truly valued. Every corner reflected her taste: calm colors, soothing lighting, and thoughtful touches that made the place feel warm and inviting. Under Amani's leadership, the business thrived. Her careful planning, strong work ethic, and attention to detail turned the struggling spa into a successful wellness center. Word spread quickly, and soon she had loyal clients who praised not only the services but the sense of peace and respect they felt in the space. Amani even started offering workshops on financial independence and self-care, teaching women how to protect themselves and their dreams. Meanwhile, Amani made the difficult decision to cut contact with her parents and Zinal. It wasn't easy, and she felt pangs of sadness at times, but she realized that keeping them in her life only invited stress, manipulation, and old wounds. Without them, her mind was clearer, her days calmer, and her heart lighter. She finally felt peace, not the kind that comes from avoiding conflict, but the kind that comes from knowing she had reclaimed her life entirely. One evening, as she walked through Amani Haven, watching happy clients enjoy the space she had built, she smiled to herself. The weight of years of unfairness, favoritism, and betrayal had lifted. She had turned pain into power, betrayal into triumph. And in that quiet, proud moment, she whispered to herself, "For the first time in my life, I wasn't the family's sacrifice. I was the author of my own freedom."